Hello and welcome to the 57th edition of the Too Black to Nerdy podcast. I'm your host, Kris.
And I'm your host, Kris.
And we are here today to discuss a very, very special film that are near and dear to our hearts. We know it's been a while since we haven't had an episode. We missed out talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but at this point, I think people know the consensus that it was a good Marvel movie. Definitely can see it being some people's favorite Marvel movies. James Gunn, knows how to make a movie. I am excited for a superhero movie now. I mean, his Superman movie now that he's moving on to DC. But if you or any person has felt like the Marvel drought lately, I definitely think Guardians of the Galaxy is the one movie where I was like, it made me remember oh yeah, I like Marvel movies.
Yeah, I feel like it's because I mean, Kris, you know me for a while, so I've always been like a harsh critic of Marvel films outside like the ones that I love, and I feel like people are getting people are forgetting that before Infinity War and Endgame, when that hype was building for it, that there were a lot of Marvel movies that were just okay, and that's fine. Like not every movie is going to hit it out of the park for you. That's just life, and that doesn't mean that the studios are pushing out cookie cutter things, which they are in some respects, but like your favorite movie or a movie you really love is not going to be the same one that everybody loves.
Absolutely.
So saying Marvel is back, it's like Phase 4 is in Phase, I guess 5 now are in the same boats that Phase 1, 2, and 3 were.
I would agree. But I'm glad. I do feel like we needed like a banger MCU movie, and Guardians 3 was it. I think I think I think you at least got a good trilogy out of Guardians. Like you could buy the trilogy and rewatch them.
It's probably the best trilogy, best Marvel trilogy, best MCU trilogy.
You have to. The only thing that kind of sucks is how Gamora got done, just because of Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah. That's probably the one stain. Though I guess James Gunn was planning on killing off Gamora anyway, because Zoe Saldana was very fast and loose about how long she wanted to stay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a good movie. All the Guardians shine, had action, humor, heart. The hallway scene was probably my favorite. Probably one of the best hallway fights we've seen.
Yeah. Marvel loves their hallway fights.
in a Marvel film for a while, but here, we're a Black Nerd podcast, so of course we have to talk about Across the Spiderverse. I was lucky. Kris and I were lucky enough to be able to see it a couple days early.
Mm-hmm.
Minds were blown. Forgot I have to go to the bathroom that whole movie. Kris, have you seen it once or twice now? I've only seen it once.
I've seen it once. I wasn't able to go see it again today. I'll probably see it again at some point.
Yeah, because I think you missed out on the beginning scene, I think.
Yeah, I missed the first couple minutes because the snack situation was insane because of just how they were bringing people into the early screening instead of just having people lined up outside of the specific screening theater. They had people a little bit further away, and they were bringing people in 20 at a time. And then that caused, people to get backed up in the snack situation. And, the workers were doing the best they could. But honestly, there needs to be a separate line in the theaters. Now that movie theaters have actual food, there needs to be a separate line for people that are just trying to get candy and drinks, things that they have to grab while they're in line. And, the cups, just go up there, scan it, go.
I get it.
But yeah, so I missed the first few minutes, which I guess we'll get to that in the spoiler part.
Yeah, because I don't know if your brother told you what happened, because I can tell you what happened.
Yeah, he told me what happened.
Okay, cool.
So yeah,
all right. But I feel like it's hard to talk about this movie without going to spoilers. So I mean, it just came out, so
we'll go light and then we'll go heavy.
All right, so non-spoilers. Dog, this movie was amazing. That was crazy. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, and they were somehow able to surpass it, which is crazy. Evading the sequel curse. All I'm hoping now is they're able to stick the landing with the third one.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that one of the biggest things in this movie, we do get to learn. There is a heavy focus on Gwen. We get to learn a whole lot about Gwen. You get her origin story, and you learn more about why she is the way she is. Obviously, her relationship with Miles gets expanded on, which is really cool. You get a ton of other Spider-Men, you've probably seen the trailers and articles and whatnot if you haven't seen the movie yet, but I would say that most of the adaptations of Spider-Man that have existed over the past, 40 years?
Yeah, I can only think of a few Spider people that are
50, 60?
missing since the animated one debuted in the 60s.
Yeah.
I can only think of a few Spider people that aren't there. One of my favorite, well, I guess technically one of my favorites was there, just not in the form that I grew up with her as.
Yeah.
But we'll get that in the spoiler. But I gotta echo what Kris said. I think this film is a masterpiece. I remember my brother Rob, he sent me a tweet maybe about a week or so ago, where someone that saw an early screening of it said, like, Into the Spider-Verse was a new hope, and this and Across the Spider-Verse is Empire Strikes Back, and that's high praise, because not only is Empire Strikes Back one of my favorite is my favorite Star Wars movie, it's also one of my favorite films of all time. So to say, like, to build up from that, and it was true. It expands the mythos. It absolutely nails the emotional scenes with all the different spider people, their interactions with each other, their interactions with their loved ones, like, just hits home every time.
Absolutely. And you get a beautiful mix of like a bajillion different animation styles depending on what universe we're in. Characters from different universes are pretty much all animated differently. There obviously, in a movie like this, there's a ton of Easter eggs for Spider-Man fans, and there were a couple. Some I was expecting, but they definitely weren't all given away in the trailers. And there was one where I was like, "Oh man,
yeah,
that was great."
100%.
And I will say that the one point of contention with this movie is that we say it's like Empire Strikes Back. It does end on a cliffhanger. I feel like if going ahead of time, it's going to have a cliffhanger. You'll feel a little bit better, but the movie does just stop.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of people didn't know that there was that this is a two-parter, and that there is a third film coming out in March of next year, so we don't have to wait that long. But yeah, there is a part two going into it, so that I do think that's a helpful piece of information. So when you just at least with us, like, we did get credits for that. There was another film that I saw this week, an early screening of, that I won't talk about, that it just went straight to, like, it said directed by, and then went straight to black, and that was it, and no one said anything. It was just that, and they barely lit up the theater, so it was just like, do we stay? Are you going to show us? What do we do? But yeah, no. So this film knocks it out of the park in pretty much every aspect.
Yeah, and I will say that, I mean, if you've been someone that if you love Spider-Man, if you love coming of age stories, if you love superhero movies, if you love the first one, you're going to have a good time. If you're sick of the MCU, I think you'll still like it. If you're a DC stan, I still think you'll like it.
Yeah, I think it's a not just, it's a superhero film for everyone. I think that's one of the great things about Spider-Man as a hero. He is a hero of the people, that anyone can relate to. And that's what the first one was about, is like anyone can wear the mask, and this movie is expanding on what it means to wear the mask and the responsibilities. The great power, with great power comes great responsibility. This movie is about great responsibility.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of any like non-spoiler anecdotes, because like once you get into it, it's hard. You know what I mean? I'm trying to. Yeah, I don't see. I'm trying to think of things I could say. without giving a movie. Oh, soundtrack.
Oh yeah, soundtrack was great.
Soundtrack was great. Score was great. Um,
I'll
and,
I'll,
sorry.
I'll ask this before we get into spoilers. Who is your favorite new Spider person that was introduced in this film?
You know, for me, it's probably a toss up between Spider-Man India and Spider-Punk. I thought they were both great. I was expecting to not like, I was not expecting to like Spider-Punk at all.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there's nothing about this version of Spider-Man that interests me at all.
Yep.
But his portrayal, the way he's used in the movie, I thought was just fantastic. His look, I definitely think there's going to be a sweet cosplay for the brothers that can pull it off, for sure. And I enjoy Spider-Man India a lot of fun. I enjoy Spider-Man India a lot too, just because I felt like he was probably one of the more carefree Spider-Men that we've seen. And this guy's just vibing, just loving his life with all his friends and family alive, which apparently you can't have in Spider-Man.
Pavitra was great. I do think I also have to give it up to Hobie. Just the way he was, how he integrated into the plot. I mean, like, I'm glad we're going to see more of all of these characters, but I wanted a little bit more Pavitra because his scenes were just so funny, and his sort of like joyous, like carefree attitude was, it was just like really like refreshing compared to like what Miles is trying to do and keep up with Gwen, and Gwen talking to Miles. I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah, but I would agree that Spider-Man India, I did enjoy, Pavitra, just how carefree he was and how much fun he was having. I can tell the actor really got into it as well.
Yeah.
And I heard that the guy who did the voice, he was Bill Pender in the Deadpool movies, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and he apparently they let him give like some anecdotes about like culture in India to help inform the character, which I thought was really cool as well. Because it was very easy, I think, to like have someone like Spider-Man India and make them almost like an Apu sort of caricature. And I feel like they really tried to like humanize him a little bit and not just be like silly and funny the entire time. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, like he still, has the characteristics of what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. He's just, just raised in a different culture than Peter Parker, just like Miles Morales is, and so how that informs their characters is all great and unique and fresh to the characters. So I think we should get into some spoiler heavy stuff. Let's here's a spoiler warning.
Yeah, spoiler warning. Get into it right here at probably around 13 minutes. They're watching. Yeah. So, oh man, where do we begin?
So I was I was disappointed in Captain Stacy at the beginning. Like because I think we've seen other captains for for superheroes, like they find out that it's their like their kid or their significant or their kid's significant other, and they're just like, okay, yeah, go. But he's just like, nah, you under arrest. I'm like, that's your daughter, that's your baby girl, and that's what you're gonna do? Nah, blood, that's not enough for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like as soon as she took the mask off, he could have put the gun down. Because it's like, bro, that's your daughter. I feel like most parents are not going to put their own child at gunpoint. Like, unless he's just that obsessed with the case and just that deranged. And also, too, it was weird that Captain Stacy was that obsessed with, like, I guess that version of Peter Parker dying, Well, because usually he'd be more overprotective of Gwen, Like, I want to keep Gwen safe.
But I guess, like, if that's your kid's best friend and they're best friends from childhood, you probably have watched them grown up too. And, so like, and you see how much that hurts your kid, that probably fuels it. But, like, if you saw how much that hurt her, but then, it's like, I'm not the one that killed him. Like, that's, you don't know what happened. He didn't even ask, like, oh, what happened? He's just like, nah, you're under arrest.
By the way, when you see it again, you do get to hear like that version of Peter Parker speak for like 2 seconds before he turns into the lizard and dies. That's Huey from The Boys doing the voice.
Interesting.
So
this cast does have, it is a fantastic cast.
The cast really is stacked. And I will say that someone made a joke and said that literally we're going to hear every version that could possibly, any person that could possibly somehow play Peter Parker. A version of Peter Parker shows up in this movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe first we should just talk about the different versions of Spider-Man and go in full spoiler. So how about
also Gwen has a type. Hobie and Miles, Gwen has a type.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we can get into that. So I do want to start. We can start with, so we already talked about Hobie, Spider-Man, and yeah. So I will talk about them first and then go to the others like Miguel and whatnot. So, like I said, was not really thinking I was going to vibe with Spider-Punk, but somehow we got like a chill black socialist in a Spider-Man movie.
Socialist, borderline
anarchist. Like, I don't know how they did it, but somehow they did. They kind of set him up to be like, so I'm gonna come after people, okay? They said before his movie came out, there was like these headlines that were like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a love triangle with Spider-Punk and Gwen and Miles, and people were like, we're gonna have 2 black men fighting over a white girl. This is toxic, blah, 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 blah. And that is really not how it's portrayed in the movie. Like, the way the movie portrays it as, Miles hasn't spoken to Gwen since the end of the first movie. We learn why later, but she hasn't. And in the meantime, she's been kicking it with the other Spider people, including Hobie, which makes sense because they're both musicians. So you would understand why they were vibe with the whole punk rock thing. So, Miles has like definitely some jealousy with Hobie, like at first, but it does not break out into any sort of like CW rom-com like the headlines were portraying and people were worried about. Yeah. So that, I think a lesson with that is like, we got to be very skeptical of leaks ahead of time with movies. Okay, I'm pretty sure think pieces were written, and it's like, y'all, the movie hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, I never saw those. I didn't see that. I saw Dr. Umar talk about how Miles has a love interest and it's Gwen, and like how he was disappointed. I'm just like, man, if you don't get, but yeah, no, I didn't think I would ride.
He needs to go build that school that he's supposed to. All right, anyway,
I didn't even know about that either. I don't know much about Spider-Punk. I didn't know like much about him going in, so I didn't even know he'd be black. That was a nice surprise. And then you have Daniel Kaluuya voicing him, so I mean, like that it tied everything together. But no, he was funny. He was obvious, like it showed that he was like being an independent thinker and an anarchist, but he was thinking few steps ahead. He's a planner. He's not just like, down with the establishment and just like talk the talk. Like, no, he's gonna walk the walk.
Absolutely. And I should have known, like, when he disappears during the intervention for Miles and shows up later, it's like, oh, okay. So he was always on the right side the whole time. Which makes sense, because why would he really vibe with, and this is another thing we talk about, would he really vibe with Miguel and the rest of the Spider people? We can talk about this organization. So before we get there, we mostly talked about Spider-Man India already. I will say that right now he is a happier Spider-Man. His girlfriend's still alive, and his captain, I guess, I forget the name of the character, but like his Captain Stacy equivalent, gets saved by
Captain
Miles.
Singh, I think.
Yeah. Captain Singh, yeah. So his Captain Stacy equivalent is saved by Miles, and that's a plot of contention, because one thing they try to iron out in this movie is that Spider people always have to lose people, and it is like a part of, literally they have to, otherwise the universe, will explode. And we haven't really gotten a conclusion to that yet. That's kind of, I guess something they're gonna have to work on in the next movie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Spider-Man India is like the happiest version of Spider-Man. He's pretty chill, you know. Very creative. But I wanted to also talk about, so how do we feel about Miguel O'Hara? He definitely between the last movie and this one, Spider-Man 2099, he definitely got on a workout plan and started juicing a little bit.
He's part like werewolf or something.
Vampire, I think.
They said vampire, but it looked like he got a little furry a bit in that beginning when he like started to go, you know, feral a little bit. But homie's been through it in the past like year and a half since we saw him in that post-credit scenes. Like he found Spider-Man from the 60s, and it was just all downhill from there for him.
So now that I did actually go back and watch the post-credit scene of the first one because it felt like a joke in the first one. But do you feel like that post-credit scene is probably canonically his first time traveling to another dimension before he made like the whole Spider Society type deal?
Yeah, because that was the AI made the first like the wrist watch things they use in the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he goes, and that's the first one. He's going to the beginning, so the first animated Spider-Man content, and so then he's been busy recruiting and trying to keep the universe intact. But
yeah, and I mean, so this version of Miguel is just like, he's sort of the hero that's like, you know, been beaten down a lot. You can tell he's been through it, and he's just kind of like, things are the way they are. We can't possibly change them, you know, because obviously he tried and failed. So, you know, sorry.
I do want to talk about that because you know how he was talking about, he talks about what has happened to him, where he found a universe where the Miguel O'Hara in that timeline died, and so he replaced it, and he had that version of him had a daughter in there, so you know that was his daughter. And then because he was in there, it caused that world to be wiped out because of the I guess he broke canon, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, like, we both know about that, don't we, Peter? And then so that's implied that it was Peter's world that got wiped out, right?
I don't see the scene again. That's interesting. Yeah.
Because then, you know, we see Peter B. Parker with Mayday and MJ. And then when at the very end of the movie, like, and I could think, oh, maybe that's on the base somewhere. But then when Gwen comes at the very end of the movie to recruit Peter B. Parker, it's like there's a street and everything like that. So I'm like, well, where is that? You know?
Yeah, I don't. This is definitely a movie I want to go see again because it does imply that, but like Peter B. Parker's universe seems fine. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. But how did you feel about the way all the Spider people like treated Miles, right? Because I mean, we can talk about the characters, but like the point of the contention in the movie is that, you know, not only do they have to stop Miles from saving his dad because his dad is supposed to die, otherwise it'll break canon, but also, you know, they're like treating Miles weird in this entire movie, not telling him things, and you're trying to figure out why. And you're like, okay, when you meet Hobie, you're like, okay, well, he's not the only Black Spider-Man, so they can't. The Spider Society isn't just racist, so what makes Miles different from the other one? And the reveal is that the spider that bit him was from another universe and not his. So, like, you know, he isn't supposed to exist, pretty much.
Right. Although that spider was supposed to bite its Miles.
Yeah.
Because that's the, like, when you see it in the film and you see when the spider from Earth 42 gets blipped or glitched or whatever, brought to Miles's Earth, it's, you know, about to bite the Miles of that world. Which I wonder if that's something that they know, because, there is this distinct lack in all of the other Spider people we meet. There is not another Miles Morales. But we know there are multiple Peter Parkers, and at least we know in the video game, the Insomniac Miles Morales has not debuted yet. Insomniac's Peter Parker did, but not Insomniac's Miles Morales. Or
Yeah.
the comic Miles Morales. But I think that I don't know how deep in the comics they're really getting there. I mean, they show a bunch of comic panels in the background, but
Yeah, it's interesting because like yeah, so it is interesting because it is like so is he because that is the only Miles Morales Spider-Man that we see in this movie. And I feel like it probably is just because they don't want any characters that are too similar to Miles, so the Miles stands out probably for the film, I would think, unless they're saving them for the next movie, which I have some ideas about that. But yeah, so I have seen online that some people feel like the Peter Parkers and other Spider-Man are acting too out of character, and the other Spider-Man would have sided with Miles. And I'm like, I feel like because the idea is that Spider-Man is always going to try to save as many people as possible and try to do it all, even if they can't. But I feel like the way they're trying to portray it here is that all of these Spider people have already lost people, and they've pretty much all accepted it. So it's it's an interesting it's an interesting point of contention. But I have some ideas about what they might do.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, like because it made sense, once we found out that the spider was from a different Earth. That it wasn't supposed to bite this version of Miles, and that's why. So I can also see why they're being more aggressive with him since he is technically an anomaly, and he calls him that. So that makes him different from the other people that they would fight because he could, I guess, potentially cause, he already broke one canon event. He could break more, and then like he could lead to the wiping out of other worlds even inadvertently, or the destabilization of the multiverse or the Spider-Verse. But it's also interesting. Rob just pointed this out to me like 15 minutes. Well, not 15, maybe about an hour ago now. That the AI, what's the AI's name?
Lila.
Lila. I was gonna say Lola, and I'm like, that's not right. Was saying, I think to Jessica Drew, or maybe she was saying it to Miguel O'Hara, that a canon event was about to happen at the very beginning of the movie when they saved Gwen. So does that mean that Captain Stacy was supposed to die and they just stopped it?
Yeah, it's I am yeah, I mean so you're saying you think that Captain Stacy's supposed to die at the opener, and they
and
Jessica Drew coming in.
Right. Did that just screw up the canon? But then again, they had to come in and save them because that version of Vulture was not supposed to be there in the first place.
Yeah, that's I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in general, probably not. Only because I don't like. I feel like this movie, they sort of like, people say this movie doesn't have an ending, but I think the ending is supposed to be with the Gwen Captain Stacy relationship and him accepting her and all that stuff. So I don't know if you would go back to that in the next one.
I think also the thing you have to look at is that like Miles is okay, so let's get to the twist of the film. So after Miles escapes the Spider-Verse organization, he thinks he's going back to his world, but because his biological signature has been changed because of the spider that bit him, it recognizes him as being from Earth 42. So he ends up going back to that one, and he runs into Uncle Aaron, who's alive in this universe, who he thinks is a Prowler, but it's not. The Prowler is hit that version of Miles. So like the look of like Miles goes through like 4 of the 5 stages of grief. in that when he's tied up, like looking into the eyes of his doppelganger, he doesn't really do anger, but he's like, he goes to denial and he ends at acceptance, or I mean, he was trying to bargain with Uncle Aaron, so you could say there was that one. But he accepts it, and he's ready at that point to fight his evil self, which is, he's preparing his venom blast, and I think that's a good space for him, because even when like that defiance level, like that look on his face and his attitude was reminiscent of when he did it with Miguel at the final part of when he was about to escape, which he wasn't really doing when he's fighting other people or trying to do everything. And I think that's a good place to leave it for a third movie, which also builds into the Star Wars anecdote of how like the third one will be Return of the Jedi, because you have the gang planning a rescue mission for one of the main characters who is captured, although it's not the main character that's captured in Return of the Jedi. But
I mean, there'll definitely be a resolution. I mean, I don't want to get. I want to get to predictions at the end because there's a couple of things I want to talk about. But there will be some version of them banding together. I do think 2099 and Jessica Drew and the other spiders will switch sides eventually. I also feel like the Spot probably won't be the only threat in that last movie, even though we haven't even talked about the Spot yet. What a way to take a silly Spider-Man villain and make him menacing. Like when the Spot powers up, I was like, what sort of Slender Man abomination universe eating thing is this?
Yeah.
And his origin story, yes, you can go back to the first movie and see Miles throw a bagel at a random scientist, and people have like zoomed in on it as like unwitting, like an instigator of doom. Like, watch you throw bagels at, because you never know. They could turn into a supervillain and,
also,
destroy the multiverse.
This is the second movie in a consecutive year dealing with the multiverse and a bagel being an integral part of it.
Oh, like everything everywhere all at once. Yeah. But there are a couple of things I want to talk about this movie, because I feel like a lot of the discourse hasn't gotten there. So obviously, this is a Spider-Man movie, right? But I really do think there are like a lot of meta themes in this movie, like how somehow out of all the Spider-Men, Miles is the one that's singled out and the one that shouldn't belong. Not only does it relate to, I think, how the comic book fandom treats not just Miles, but a lot of legacy characters that are, replaced by people of color or women or queer folks. And then I think that theme also relates to just, I mean, obviously you can relate to like, being Black in America when you're told that you're not supposed to belong in certain spaces, when you know that's where you need to be. I think like having that theme in a Spider-Man movie I thought that was crazy,
Yeah.
Literally, Miles has to stand up to the entire multiverse. And, he's got to put his feet down. He's like, yo, I'm Miles Morales, bitch. Like, I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's definitely a meta commentary. Definitely is.
And I mean, we can see how, Little Mermaid, you saw that just came out. It's the same sort of stuff, where anytime that we're in places people think we shouldn't be, they want us to leave. And you really do have to stand up for yourself and be like, no, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought, I'm curious if they're going to go into this with the new movie, the next movie, but obviously we see like an evil Miles Morales like working with his uncle, and I do like the idea that Miles Morales is obviously a brilliant kid. I mean, he's talking about going to Princeton. He's in this like math and science. He's in this science. I think it's science and art. I think it's just like supposed to be like a state of the art, like a really good school. He's doing all these things, and meanwhile, you have an alternate version of him that's pretty much in the streets. So I do also like the idea that like it shows like, depending on what environment someone is raised in, how they can turn out, right? Like the Miles we know, he had both of his parents, mostly stayed out of trouble, and he's able to go on and be hero, succeed. And like if Miles he didn't have that, could have been totally different. And I think that's a struggle that a lot of men of color can something that can relate to, just how having opportunities or not having opportunities can really change the outlook of, how our lives can be.
Yeah, and I also wonder about the circumstances that Miles did. Like, how did his dad die, and when did that happen? Like, was he already, hanging with his uncle Aaron and doing like jobs and robberies and things like that with him beforehand, or did that start afterwards as a means of like helping to provide for his mom? And how would that have changed if he got bit by the spider? Would he have been Spider-Man and then his dad died and he would have kept going like, all the other spider people do? Or was he already on the path of like being the Prowler, and that would have just made him a more souped up version of it? Because we see that version of that universe's like realm or world, I guess. Well, Brooklyn, I guess, because that's where he is crime infested, and the criminals are just pretty much running things. And you heard J. Jonah Jameson say, isn't there someone out there that could stop it, as opposed to,
Being a hater as usual.
right. And I do
J.K.
like
Simmons doing the voice too, which I
in
always
every
appreciate.
version. In
Yep.
every version that we heard. So J.K. Simmons is just J. Jonah Jameson in the multiverse confirmed.
He is a definitive version. I mean, his J. Jonah Jameson is a definitive version for sure.
Yeah. In terms of spider people, I was saying that there were a few versions that were missing. So the one that I said that I like, they weren't in the capacity that I enjoyed was Mayday Parker. She was there as a baby, which she was adorable, and her scenes were funny. Also, bless you, by the way, my bad. But when I was growing up, there was like the M2 universe where it was like all the legacy, like all the characters, like their kids or their like apprentices taking on the mantle. And so she was Spider Girl. And so but that was her as like a teenager and young adult. And so I'm like, oh, like that was a nice reference, because a lot of Spider Men versions, when they go to the future, don't have a kid, or their kid gets taken away by making.
What do you mean? Peter Parker is not allowed to be happy. He can't get married.
Yeah, no. Oh, he gets married and then he gives up his marriage to save, like 90-year-old Aunt May from dying because he felt guilty.
They really do not. Sorry,
they just haven't done a good Spider-Man story in several years. It's just
I really feel like they need to find a way in the comics to get Peter Parker to really progress in a significant way. Like, if they knew what they were doing, I think Peter Parker would be akin to like a Barry Allen, and Miles Morales should be Wally West.
I think so. Here's the thing. They could easily, I mean, honestly, Peter Parker and MJ are not even together anymore. Like, get them together, right? And then have them have a kid, after they get married and everything, or they're together or whatever. They're a unit. Have them have a kid, because there's so much you can do with doing fatherhood and being a superhero and everything like that. Like, seeing Superman as a dad in Superman and Lois, like a version of Superman that's not really explored much by the comics, besides like a few panels, is great. And also, like a dad of twins where one has powers and one doesn't. Like, there's a lot you can do there. And obviously, when you see Spider-Man, when you see Peter Parker interact with Miles Morales, like, you can see that sort of like fatherly side to him. There's a lot to explore there. And especially as you get a fan base that is getting older and older and older, as like comic fan bases do, where they can see this, like, you might have people that are in like the kid stage and seeing, like, getting that fatherly advice from Spider-Man, or seeing how a Spider-Man can relate to his kid, and you have parents trying to relate to their kids, or uncles and aunts relating to their nieces and nephews. Like, there's a big world there. Like, stop just making not what kind of thing am I talking? Like, stop just trying to torture your character. Stop trying to do just like torture porn.
You can keep him poor. He can be a poor dad.
Right. Well, he had Parker Industries, so is he poor?
for a while, I haven't caught up with Spider-Man comics, but anyway, one thing I want to talk about too, before we get into predictions, is cameos in this movie were off the chain.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll list them off. I mean, my favorites, I guess. We got to see a clip of Andrew Garfield with his Captain Stacy, which they were both in that movie. I'm like, oh yeah. We got like a screen of Toby's Uncle Ben, and like you see like a little Tobey Maguire up in the corner when they start going over, the canon and how all the Spider-Man have to lose people. I like the cowboy Spider-Man with the horse. Here's pretty cool. It was in the trailers, but the Spider-Man that's a therapist that's listening to another Spider-Man, he's like, yo, so someone died? I'm like, oh, it's true.
Yeah.
And then I think probably the best cameo was Donald Glover we don't know if he's the MCU's version of the Prowler.
He better be.
Pretty close, at least. And I thought it was a really cool way to include Donald Glover in the movie, since he's somehow Butterfly Effect. Him in a random episode of Community, which is a sitcom, caused a butterfly effect for Miles Morales to even be created. And he played Aaron Davis in Spider-Man Homecoming, but the Spider-Man Home trilogy, sort of moved away from that. So he hasn't had a chance to come back. So I did like seeing him as a version of the Prowler here, and hopefully it's a hint that the MCU is going to do their own version of Miles, or at least Sony will make a live action Miles movie at some point. And if Aaron Davis is in those movies, then he's going to be played by
as long as he's not super busy like he keeps being. There was also that we saw Mrs. Chen from the Venom universe, Tom Hardy's Venom universe. They referenced Doctor Strange and Tom Holland Spider-Man, although we did not see Tom Holland Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man was there and got to talk for a little bit, which I didn't know how that many people loved. People
like that show. It was a good show.
Yeah.
I think also it got canceled for a worse Spider-Man show.
Yeah. I don't know if it was worse. I did rewatch Spectacular Spider-Man earlier this year, or maybe late last year. Dog, that Spider-Man was so horny. Like, I get it, he's a teenager, but like, oh my god, like everything he did, it was motive. He was just like, I remember when they're talking about MJ, and he hadn't met her yet, and he's like, he's like, oh, she's a nice girl, and he's like, oh, that just means she's fat. I'm like, bro. I was like, all right. But yeah, so you had that. Obviously, Mahershala Ali was back as the Prowler in the alternate universe. We already talked about J.K. Simmons, and then briefly, you got to hear Penny Parker speak, the one from Into the Spider-Verse, and then we got to see Spider-Ham and Spider-Man Noir at the very end, although they didn't get to say anything.
They'll be there in the third one.
Yeah, you got an elite squad to save Miles from Earth 42 and the rest of the Spider-Verse. You got Gwen, Pavitr, Hobie, Spider-Man Noir, Peter B. Parker, Spider-Ham, Penny Parker. That's everybody, right? That's all.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so that's gonna be the stage is set, and if they pull off the landing, which I'm very confident in that team to do, that might be the best superhero trilogy of all time.
If they stick the landing. Oh, we forgot Insomniac Spider-Man from the game.
Oh yeah, Insomniac Spider-Man. Well, I did say that earlier.
Yuri Lowenthal, he's having a year. We also saw a trailer for the new Spider-Man game a couple weeks ago. So very excited they're gonna do they're gonna do a Black Suit Spider-Man story in the game. So also very exciting.
Although I will say, even if like the third movie is just good, like not if it's just like great or amazing or a masterpiece like the first two, like let's just say it's just like good, they stick the landing but they wobble a bit, I'll still say it may be the best superhero trilogy of all time.
There's a good chance, a very good chance. So you want to get into predictions? I have a couple.
I don't have any, so that's all on you. Like I haven't even thought that far ahead. I may have some after I see it again, but I don't have any right now.
We got a whole year, so
No,
less
we
than
got
a year,
less
like
than
9
a year.
months.
We got 9 months, yeah. March 2024.
So I think in this next movie, we're 100% going to have this version of Miles Morales meet Tom Holland Spider-Man. The reason I say that is because we saw Toby and Andrew in this one, did not see Tom, who's a current Spider-Man. And anytime they interview Tom Holland, he's just like, I think Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie ever, and I don't know if I'll come back. We'll see. It depends on what they do with the character. Tom Holland's going to come back. There's no way. I don't foresee him not coming back. So I do think there, it's interesting, with the ending of No Way Home where everyone forgot about him. I feel like he has to meet this version of Miles in the third movie because he's one of the major spider people that we haven't seen yet, like in this universe. So that is one thing I'm sure is going to happen. I do think Miles will save his dad. If there's so much, about you're doing a defying fate story, right? They've done it on The Flash a billion times. Does someone else die in his place? Does Gwen die? Probably not. I don't think so. Yeah. But I think he will end up saving his dad. I feel like
Peter B. Parker might die. Peter B. Parker might die.
Peter B. Yeah, it's possible. And we mentioned before, we haven't seen any of the other Mileses yet besides the evil one. Will we see the Insomniac version of Miles Morales in the next movie? I think it's possible.
Yeah, depends on if they can get the voice actor. Obviously, they're probably not going to be working on another game in between.
They're done. Yuri said they're done with recording for the game already.
Well, no, I'm saying for like a sequel or like
like a Spider-Man 3
Morales game. Because while they were filming this one, they had both Spider-Man 2 that they had to record for, but also Spider-Man Miles Morales. So that's probably, I mean, granted, like they probably could have squeezed it in for a small cameo, but we'll see. I would like to see like a bunch of other Mileses to come back him up, just like, like how you have so many Peter Parkers just to have, like, you don't have to have all of them. You can do because Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, had a Miles Morales in that TV show.
Yeah.
And then maybe if you can bring in the comics one and find someone to voice them, I think that'd be cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're, as comparing these movies to Star Wars, I do feel like they are going to be in a rescue mission. We probably will get a showdown between the two versions of Miles. One thing we didn't mention too, they gave his mom a lot of screen time in this movie. I thought his mom in this movie was fantastic. And when he was talking to Gwen at the party, the mom looks over and is just like, I don't think she looks like she doesn't speak Spanish. Hilarious. That is absolutely a mom comment, something they would say. They look over and be like, can she cook? I don't know. She good enough for my son? Like, I thought that reaction was hilarious. And she also gives Miles like the speech of the movie, which is pretty much like, go where you need to be,
Right. Just make sure where they go, they appreciate you and not tolerate you.
Yeah.
And I would say like Rio Morales has been like, they've been hitting it out the park with her content in the past couple, like both like on-screen adaptations, whether it's the video games or the movie, but also the comics. Like they've been doing a very good job. Like it was because she was dead in the Ultimate Universe. It was just him and his dad. And then when Miles came into the main continuity, he brought back his mom. And I think that was the right decision. Like Rio Morales and Jefferson Davis or Jefferson Morales are both great characters.
Yeah, it's interesting with Miles. Like every adaptation, they kill off someone different. Because in the game, they kill his dad. In the Ultimate Universe, they killed his mom. And then in Spider-Verse, obviously, they killed Uncle Aaron. So it's like they really kind of play like roulette with like who they want to take away from Miles, to give him his origin. So, yeah, I mean, my main prediction is I think we will get an appearance of Tom Holland Spider-Man. You know what? I'll throw in Sony, I mean, Venom. I feel like we may actually see Tom Hardy's Venom as well. Because that universe got referenced. I mean, is Tom Hardy that busy to not make a cameo? Not Morbius. Please no.
No.
Oh,
unless
man.
That's like an anomaly that gets beat up by all the spider people. Like they're like trying to transverse, like Miles is like jumping from universe to universe, and they all end up in the Mobius one, and they all do like that JoJo meme where they're like an enemy, and then they just like start stomping
on them. Yeah,
just like the the public did to that film. Anyway,
and and with the Spot being being set up as like the villain of the next movie, and they have to defeat him. I feel like we may get another villain. I don't know if they can deal with Spot the whole time.
Well, I don't think they will for the whole time, because you'll have probably in the first act him fighting his evil self, then the group coming to rescue him. Then you're gonna have a Spider Person show off between Miles and Gwen and crew, and then probably not probably Miguel, Ben O'Reilly, who's voiced by Andy Samberg, which is funny, and then Jessica Drew, and then they brought another Spider-Man with them, didn't they? At the end, Miguel. I thought they did.
Besides Ben, I know they have Ben Reilly with them.
Okay, so then Miguel will probably call for backup. Jessica Drew is definitely going to switch sides, and then in the third act, like that's going to get interrupted by Spot trying to basically destroy things and call out Spider-Man, and then they're gonna battle it out, and the other Spider people will probably help them, unless Spot is like, you know what, you all go home, and he just like sends them somewhere.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I think the one we missed, because I'm looking at the Wikipedia because there's so many. There was the Spider Bite, the like virtual reality one. I think that's the one we missed, and it looks like she's on Team Miles.
Yeah. Oh, who was she voiced by? Yeah, she was with them.
Amanda Steinberg.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I remember seeing their name
from. I mean, she got her Amanda Steinberg. She got to start on Hunger Games, I think.
Yep, she was Rue. And she's also going to be in The Acolyte, which is an upcoming Star Wars project that they're filming now, and it will come out, I think, next year. Saw a trailer for that at Celebration, so I'm very excited.
Get the bag.
She was there. She was at Celebration. She dressed up as Padme. My heart may have skipped a beat. Anyway, and also, like we're gonna get Spider-Man 2 this year, so we're, as Spider-Man fans, as long as you don't read the comics, we're winning.
Yeah, just ignore the comics, and we're eating good this year for sure.
Ignore that they're killing Kamala Khan in a Spider-Man Peter Parker one.
She's gonna come back with new powers next week.
Yeah, not next week. It's going to be they're probably going to have to do like the full. I think it's more than just a one shot. I think it's like a mini series, and then maybe in like October she's going to come back with new powers. But I'm just very annoyed that, because I saw like people like screenshot and shared the drafts or the shots, and it's essentially, if you've watched the Flash TV show, the villain is pulling a Savitar. He's trying to kill Mary Jane by like holding her up and stabbing her through the back in like the torso, and then after like the hero, Peter in this case, is cradling her, it turns out it was a shapeshifter, just like how HR shapeshifted with the technology to be Iris. It's Kamala Khan being MJ, but the whole thing about Kamala was that she stopped shape-shifting because that whole part of her arc was learning to accept herself, and she didn't need to be white to be accepted.
Yeah.
And they just I hate it.
Yeah, Marvel Comics have just been, they can just be all over the place sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So is there any other things about the movie you want to talk about? Trying to think of most of what we missed. So I know you've seen The Flash. I haven't.
I'm not gonna talk about that film.
Yeah, we can cover it. Maybe bring some friends on.
Nope, not gonna
Um,
do that either. Nope, that was a film, and yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that.
Kris is like, no, please, no.
Not opening up our podcast to that.
You don't want the Snyder Bros coming after us.
It's there are too many different factions that could, like, that movie is I it's just um yeah, if Ezra Miller wasn't acting like the Reverse Flash in real life, that'd be a different conversation. But they are, and I don't even think anything has happened with those criminal charges. They've just been shuttered away into a dungeon somewhere by DC. That and they're allegedly they're being let out for the premiere, uh, but they're doing no press for the film, which is kind of incredible. But that's all I'm going to say about that movie.
All right. Well, we move on from that.
Mm-hmm.
Kris is going to have me delete delete that part of the podcast.
Nope, we can have that. We can have this part in there. That's all I'm gonna say about
it. I'm just kidding. So yeah, I'm excited for the next movie. March 2024 can't come fast enough, and I think when we finally have this trilogy, it could be the best comic book movie trilogy of all time. Because every trilogy has a weaker movie, and they've had two strong ones out of the gate. Usually, the second is where they screw up. So,
I mean, I know a lot of people like to say that Return of the Jedi isn't good, but I love that film. I think it's very much underrated. I do think the original trilogy of Star Wars has 3 good films, and I think this one will as well.
Let's cross those fingers. He's doing it right now. Well, all right. We'll be so. Sorry. Oh man, I'm tired today. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it. Like we said, if you somehow listened to the whole thing and you didn't click off, please go see this movie. Definitely a movie you can see multiple times.
Oh yeah.
I definitely want to get it on physical because all the streaming services are being real whack right now. So you never know what we're going to be able to watch in the long term forever. So you might want to support physical media a little bit. But until next time, live long and prosper.
And remember, until next time, there are more of us.